Thanks for being here today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Minimum wage for drivers, city's goal here to increase earnings for those drivers. Why wouldn't this do that?
I think that part of the bill is great. There are a few things. There are several bills going through the council, presumably today. We believe several of them are quite good. There's a piece of it that talks about driver pay. If you look at the TT Go platform, drivers will not only earn this minimum wage, drivers on the TT Go platform can earn at the median about 50% more than Uber and Lyft drivers. This is achieved because our blockchain supplements the driver's income. With our unique proof of drive model, drivers are rewarded fairly based on the amount of work they do. This is on top of their regular income earned from providing a ride-hailing service. On top of that, we charge 0% commissions to our drivers. So TT Go is not only not taking a cut from our drivers' income, we are providing them with additional income from the blockchain. So minimum wage for drivers, we've already been doing it, and we're totally on board with that. And that piece is great. What we're concerned about is the cap.
Why are you concerned about the cap? Because when I hear that, I think limited supply, you probably have the demand, and you can raise prices.
First of all, we don't want to raise prices. Certainly not in the TT Go service, where our whole goal is to keep it extremely affordable, so that people can use it essentially as a mass transit system. That's the goal. Most rides in Manhattan are $5. That's sort of been our motto from the beginning, and that's really our goal. So we don't want to raise prices. 1, we don't think it's good for consumers. We don't think it's good for drivers, as we just discussed. Drivers, certainly on the TT Go platform, are already making quite great earnings. The passengers, too, are benefiting from our blockchain with our proof of ride model. The passengers are paying lower fees and are also rewarded with every ride. We like to keep rides affordable, rewarding even, so no. Raising prices is definitely not our goal. The problem with the cap is that it creates an artificial limit on supply. We don't really know what that's going to do. There are already examples in China and Southeast Asia where a monopoly on ride-hailing services are creating unhappy voices on poor pricing. We don't want that. And 2, yes, there are 100,000 vehicles in the city, but with a sharing economy, with ride-hailing services, we can actually reduce that number. With the cap, we can't bring in more vehicles. We cannot provide a better, smoother, and more seamless service. People will not want to use our service and choose to keep their own cars, and the vehicle population will only increase.
The city argues congestion's getting bad on the roads as more ride-hailing services are in existence. Is there no cap you'd be happy with? Would you be satisfied to have a say in what the cap should be? Something like that?
So I want to talk about 2 things that you have just said. 1, I know it is very popular to blame the ride-hailing services for the congestion. The city said the same thing 3 years ago in 2015, when de Blasio tried to pass the cap bill and it failed. It then proceeded to pay McKinsey about $2 million to study this. And what that study showed was that the ride-hailing companies were in fact not at all at fault for the increasing congestion. If you're a New Yorker and you ride on the streets, you know when you get to the end of that traffic jam, what's at the end of it? Construction or delivery trucks. And that's exactly what those studies showed. We know that ride-hailing, again, it's popular, but that's not the cause. In fact, on the contrary, ride-hailing can reduce congestion on the roads.
The city would point to, and I know this sounds like a local story, but it could be happening in other cities later. Subway traffic is weak, right? People are not traveling underground like they used to, for whatever reason.
I think even that is more complex than it sounds, right? Again, if you look at what the MTA itself is saying, where subway riderships decline is in the far outer boroughs, late at night, where subway service is not very good, and where the declines are happening, have nothing to do with the congestion. So I think the question of congestion and the cap really don't go together. I don't think that's the issue. Where we would be happy, by the way, is an exemption to the cap. So if you want to pass a cap, fine, but at least allow us to bring in more vehicles first, so we can reach a critical mass, so that we can reduce congestion when people only have to use the car on demand. We think that makes sense.
At what point do these rides get too cheap? Because when this first came out, Uber cars were beautiful, right. So were the Lyfts. It was like, the taxis were dirty. Now, a lot of the Ubers and Lyfts are just as run down as the most rundown cabs. The drivers say, hey, we're having trouble making a living. They used to be making $70,000 a year, the story said. Not so anymore. I mean, yeah, I guess it's nice to be able to hail a car really quick, but people are suffering here and the service isn't always that great.
I think those are very good points. I think that's where you have to find the right balance, right? So as I mentioned in the beginning, I think there are pieces of this city council bill, or set of bills, that are very good. The parts that have to do with utilization standards, making sure that these vehicles are utilized at a high rate, with lots of passengers. The way I would argue that TT Go does it, that drivers earn a fair wage, exactly as you were saying. I don't think we want situations where drivers are making below minimum wage. And again, on our platform, that really doesn't happen. So all of those are great. I just think the piece that we are confusing that with creating, essentially going back to a medallion system. So, I mean, if you were here in New York, the taxis, that was not a great situation. I don't know that that's what we want to go back to.